Retail and hospitality is changing, with often complex and fragmented systems combined with large volumes of customer data for businesses to make sense of. It's critical to work with the right partners in order to guarantee success. At Tratec Consulting, we help retail and hospitality businesses transform their technology, removing overly bloated processes and creating unified and efficient systems of working throughout. So don't just take our word for it. See for yourself. Tratec Consulting, the leaders in technology transformation across retail and hospitality.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the All Things Borough podcast, the official podcast of Horror Football Club, and sponsored by Tratec Consulting. I'm Alan, and I'm joined by Simon. Good evening, Simon. Excuse the voice. Don't adjust your volumes or anything like that, because I have got a horrible cold, and my voice is a little bit croaky. I've got a nice little cup of tea to soothe the old throat. But Simon, how you doing?
Yeah, well, lovely, mate, lovely. Yeah, I've heard his cries of derision already.
Well, it's running out now.
Half an hour. Yeah. So I was I just let everybody know I was moving my camera, and I'm not. There's not an earthquake in the Santos there, so it's just me moving my camera. I'm very well. Yeah, I had a bit of a nightmare this week getting to work. M3 was closed a couple of days, but
yes, we all heard about the M3.
Yeah, I was stuck in that. Yeah, so feel for me. 2.5 hours took me to get to work. Do 20 miles. Terrible it was. But there we are. Luckily, I had my colleague Paul with me to keep me company. It was all right. I wasn't just sitting there listening to talk sport for 2 hours. But no, I wouldn't mind that, to be fair. I have had jobs in the past where I did that, to be honest with you. So it wasn't all bad. So yeah, all good. Yes, all good. I'm doing better than you, Al. Apparently you've got some kind of man flu cold thing. So,
yeah, I'm calling it. Yeah. So I was in London on Saturday. I went to watch Tottenham versus Villa, the FA Cup game.
What's the score?
I might have strayed a bit too close to.
What was the score again?
It doesn't matter what the score was. I think during the day I might have strayed a bit too close to Arsenal at some point, and I've caught some sort of weird lurgy from them. So
yeah, it's understandable. It's happened to the best of us, mate, all the time. You know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't caught any sort of winning skill from them. So at the minute,
if any young kids are watching, this is a prime example of why you should wash your hands after you go to the toilet. But there we are.
Yeah. I always wash my hands. Don't want you spreading rumours.
Of course you do. Yeah, we'll go. If there's no fresh water available, just sniff test is always a good second option.
Sniff test. Yeah. So keen insight into your hygiene activities. Anyway,
what do you mean? I shower at least twice a year, birthday and Christmas.
That's why everybody. He's a single man.
One of the many reasons.
Listen up, okay. So thanks to everybody that's been watching us on YouTube. As you can see, we have got Blaine Conway and Danni Parsons on the show tonight. They're both. So Blaine is manager of Ashton United, and Danni, you are a player, and you both host the Her Journey podcast, which I'm grateful enough and to have appeared on with one of my players, which was a really great experience, a really great episode. So thanks for that again. Thanks you guys enough. But how are you doing? How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Just quickly on that, how is Leanne doing? How is her recovery going? How is she?
Leanne is doing really, really well. Thanks. She's walking a lot more. She's driving a lot more, which is really good. So I don't think she has to have any further operations or anything like that. And she's working. She's back working, not full time, obviously, still sort of on a part-time basis. And I think she's going to be doing some physio. She's just received the money from her GoFundMe page, which is now closed down. So thanks to everybody that has donated to that. So that's quite a bit of money there that will help her out with, especially with things like physio, if she needs to do something extra. But yeah, no, she's doing really well. So the only downside to it is she's got it's just a really horrible scar on her leg, and I don't mean like horrible as in it looks horrible. I just think it's horrible because it's not straight. And I think the surgeon that operated her was a bit of a butcher, really. It sort of went a bit like this, all the way down her leg.
The scar on there was a nasty scar.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah, it was a naughty.
Was he? He had a few beers the night before, did that surgeon, and sort of.
He must have done. He must have done. Yeah, he must have done. Well, she said to me that they had to go a bit further than they planned. So they did the initial incision. They obviously had to go a bit further. And I said to her, "What? They couldn't carry on in a straight line. It just went like all this." But yeah, no, she's doing really well, and she's really appreciated coming on your podcast, which we'll come on to later. Yeah,
Alan, just before you move on to something else, just explain to everybody that's listening, maybe hasn't heard her story on her journey, what the injury was that she had.
Well, if they haven't heard it, then more fool them, because they should be listening to that podcast. But yeah, so she was playing a game for us, and she was playing in goal, and she come out to claim the ball, and part of sort of challenge with an opposition striker, and I think they clashed knees or something like that, and and when the thing is, when she came off, she had to be sort of helped off, but it didn't look that bad. Her knee was looking okay. She had a tiny little cut on it. It wasn't swollen or anything, and she stayed for the rest of the game. But in the end, she had to be carried down to the changing room because she just couldn't walk down there. And then the next day, she went to hospital, and turns out after an X-ray that she severely broke her knee and required, I think there's some metal in there somewhere, and just required an operation. And it broke it. It broke all of us, really, because it affected all of us. And she'd only played the bad thing, the sad thing is she only played a couple of games for us up to that point, and yeah, it's just ruined her season and all of our seasons, really. But like I said, she's on the mend. She's doing really well, and she's, like I said to you guys, she's very grateful for what you've done to help and get her message out, as you do with all the others.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, she had a story, so we were happy to tell it.
She was the first one. You and Leanne were the first one we ever done.
Yeah.
The original first Her Journey story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
brilliant.
The beta episodes, forever etched in the memories. Yeah. It probably brings us on quite nicely, doesn't it? Because Danni, you've had an injury, haven't you? That you're recovering from, haven't you? You just want to just tell us a little bit about that and the injury, probably first of all, and then the recovery that's taken place, and any help you've had off the pitch from people, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I had a lot of pain, like knee pain, for many years, maybe 4 years. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse. So it probably started when I was probably around 14, 15. And it was when I was getting into women's football where it just became excruciating. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And a load of people told me that it was muscles. It could have been something to do with muscles not pulling up my kneecap properly. And it wasn't a fully diagnosed answer. It was always, it could be this, it could be that. But it got to when I was about 17, and it was just like, I can't carry on. It's really, really badly painful. And so I was like, got to 18, and I played a match for Fleet, which is a local team by us. And I played 20 minutes and I came off, and I was like, I need to get this sorted, because if I want to carry on playing football, I can't be in this much pain. And I was wearing a knee brace, which was already pulling up my kneecap as much as it could do. But after that game, I really settled on the idea that I needed to go to the hospital and get answers. So that was my next plan, and was the process of getting the MRIs, the X-rays, and all of that. And long story short, my bones were rubbing together in my knee. So they were rubbing together and creating a lot of inflammation, which really limited how far I could lift my kneecap up. I could probably get halfway, and then I'd have to pull my kneecap up to extend it all the way. So when I found that out, I was like, oh, it's not just muscles, it's something quite more serious. So then the only route was to have surgery. So yeah, that was quite a scary time. And what they did is they pulled my kneecap back over to the middle. They sawed some shin bone out of my leg and pinned it back into place with a titanium plate and 5 titanium pins. So that's what I've now got in my leg.
We might have to put a warning on this episode. Don't have your dinner while you're for the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, a warning of graphic content on display. Yeah. It sounds awful. I was gonna the first part of that story there you were saying. Obviously, it's the first time I've heard it, but it seems to be like I don't know what your experience was, but it's very difficult. People don't understand the difficulties of when you when you get injured as a non-professional player in any sport. You trying to get the MRIs and the X-rays done is a wait all the time, isn't it? You don't. It's like professionals can go to the hospital straight after a match and they're straight in. You know, they get private healthcare and they're looked
Yeah.
after. But you have to wait, don't you? What was the wait like for getting the MRIs? Was it a couple of
Um,
weeks or longer?
Luckily, the whole process from the first like meeting with a surgeon to surgery was about a 6 month process. So which is really good for compared to some other people that have had to wait years. So I'm really grateful that it only took 6 months altogether, because then it got done much quicker. And I was like, let's just get this show on the road. Let's just get this surgery done.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah,
could.
But
it's
let's
like
not forget as well, though. Let's not forget though as well, though, Danny. Is that it's the few years before when you were experiencing the pain that you were getting
Yeah.
left, for want of a better word, fobbed off by doctors by them saying it was this, it is that, or it's the growing
Yeah.
pains or something else.
Yeah, I saw many.
misdiagnosed, I think is the right term, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Now I saw many physios, and it really affected me during school, where it would be really painful, and then some weeks it would not be painful at all. So then I'd be like, oh, is there actually a problem? Am I just making it a bigger thing than it actually is? But yeah, no, it wasn't. It turned out to be much more serious. But there were times where I'm like, oh, there's not much pain here. Let's carry on playing football. And then I'd play football again. And it would just be a cycle of I'd play football on Sunday, a game, and then it would be so painful. I wouldn't be able to walk properly up a step, or just walk normally after a game. And no ice would help, nothing like putting heat on it, ice packs, nothing. And then we have like 2 days and then you're training again. So in between that time, I'm barely doing anything so that I can try and get that inflammation down a little bit and then go again at training. And then it's just that process of bringing down the inflammation, go again, and then it just creates a bigger cycle.
Yeah, it's very similar.
Sounds like me and Simon most days, and we're 44 years old.
Yeah, every day I roll out of bed. Yeah, especially when I've had a couple of beers the night before. Oh, it's even worse. Yeah, it takes two days instead of 1 day to get out of bed. Your story very much sounds like someone say a professional footballer who's been playing the game for maybe 20 years and has accumulated a lot of injuries. But you're a young woman. So and you're only really at the start of your football career. So all this sort of, you must feel like you almost, when every time you play a football a game at your young age at 17, 18, you're probably thinking, I feel like I've been playing 20 years already, you know, with all the injuries I'm getting, and I'm having to do all this recovery, and you're like almost like a seasoned professional, knowing their body really well, and they know they've got this issue, and they know what they're going to have to do every week to get out on the pitch the next Sunday.
Yeah, and it's also just the mental side as well, after having to go through an injury like that and then coming back from it. I think the physical side you can deal with and recover much quicker from that, but then the mental side, it's much harder to recover from, because it's always the reaching out for help and not actually knowing the mental side and having the tools to deal with what you've just been through. So yeah, that I found the mental side much more challenging than the physical.
Who helped you on that sort of side of things? Where did you get the help from?
So I got a lot of help from family, and the unlucky thing was when I did have the injury and the surgery, at the time of surgery, I wasn't part of a team. So I didn't have like that community of players around me and anyone to reach out to. I wasn't part of a team. So that did limit me to being able to have some more support. Because if you're at a team, you can just be like, I'll come and watch training today and have that, be around people. But I didn't have that. So it was a lot of family, friends. But then it got to a point where I was like, oh, I actually do need a bit more help than just talking to family. So then it was like going to therapy and all of that sort of stuff, which really helped. So yeah, that was really good.
Did you ever get to a point where you found out the cause of your injury? Because it's unusual, isn't it? Because you were playing football sort of on a very much a part-time basis, I should imagine, at that point in your life. And obviously the injury must have occurred a few years previously. Did you ever find out what it was?
So it was never like an impact injury. It was more inherited from my parents, because dodgy knees running the family. But I think my mum just has the same thing as me, but because I'm just much more active and played a lot more football, then it affected me more. And because it affected me more, I was like, I need to get this sorted if I want to carry on playing. So that was my only solution, really, was went down the physio route and tried to build up the muscle and everything. But the only solution was to get surgery, and that's what I had to do. So yeah.
Yeah, I know these days I think it's you back in the sort of 80s, 90s, it was like you get an injury like that, it was just oh just get the operation done. But there's a lot of players who prefer to go down the other a lot of different routes, aren't there? There's more than one way to solve these things, aren't there? There's a lot of players who try to sort of do the more physio side, even though it might take longer to get recover. But when they come out the other side, they're a lot stronger. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to do it, isn't it? But yeah, I do find that injuries like that, I think you were sort of left with only one option, really, weren't you, to
Yeah,
get
it
it
was
sorted?
it was
Yeah,
one option.
yeah.
Take
It
it or
does
leave
all.
it.
It does all for me. It also does show how much football as a sport and a game impacts your body, because obviously your
Yeah.
mum, so for example, you mentioned that she probably has the same
Yeah,
issue
she was a
you've got, but
dancer
has
as
never had
well.
the issues.
Yeah, she was a dancer as well. So she did have knee pain, but as she got older, she doesn't really do it anymore. So, but it just started for me at a young age. So I was like, oh, okay, this is
Mm.
not the most fun thing, but yeah, I'm glad I got it sorted because now I'm back and it's no knee pain. So
How long was your total time out of the game?
3 years.
Well, 3 years,
Wow.
wasn't it?
Yes.
Crikey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so about 4 years of pain and then 3 years out of the game. So yeah, and that was I got it was like 2 years out of the game, and then I got told I could go back and start doing like the warm-ups and everything, but it was the mental side that knocked me out for another year, and I couldn't get back into it. So 3 years in total.
Mm. Yeah, so
Is this your first?
we've had similar conversation with our Aaron Cole, one of the Farnborough players. Obviously broke his leg at the start of the season, and he obviously had a previous injury at Dorking and Reading and Dorking, and with his knee, and he was out for 3 years as well. So it can't these knee injuries are really serious. You hear a lot of good stories where players have got ACLs now, but 20 years ago, you had an ACL, that was your career done. But now
Yeah.
players can be back within 9 months. But as I said previously, they're in the professional game and they're getting the top help and the help really quickly, and they get everything done a much quicker
Yeah.
process. So for someone like a non-professional like yourself and Aaron, they kind of this is what I mentioned about the weights, because Aaron had to wait and had to do physio only once a week because he couldn't afford to do it, and he was doing a part-time job, and all these sort of things accumulate. So there's
Yeah.
lots of things that people forget about.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors to it. It's like I was working at the time, so I couldn't work, and I had to like relearn to walk again, and it was just starting off from the basics. So I didn't prepare myself for what was to come after surgery. I say this on our podcast a lot, is I sort of told myself it'll be fine. I don't need football. Like I'll be out for a couple of weeks, but then it was the complete opposite journey, and I was like, oh, it was another shock to that, just not being prepared. So sometimes I bring it up on the pod and I'm like, if anyone else going through surgery, these are some stuff that you want to prepare for, just to have that heads up, really.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So is this your first season back playing then?
Yeah, so I started women's football around like 16, 17. So I started quite early, but this is probably my first season where I've had no knee pain in women's football. So I'd count it as my first proper season where I'm
That
like
alone, I mean,
to it.
that alone must be just a brand new experience for you to be able to run
Yeah.
around and not experience that pain after or during or after games.
Yeah. And it's just like a different mindset now where
Yeah,
we see this in the pod all the time. It's like um that one game where we were losing, we lost about 10-0 in this game, and everyone was like, oh, why is another goal's gone in and all of this? And
Little
then
victories.
yeah, and Blaine saw me coming off the pitch, and he was like, "Why are you smiling? You just lost like 10-0." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, this is the first game I've been able to play 90 minutes with no pain." So then it's like that
yeah,
mindset change of being like, "I'm back. I don't have knee
yeah,
pain. We can lose 10-0, but it was a victory for myself. So
yeah.
Does that
Jumping
put a little
on the back of what?
Sorry.
Jumping on the back of what Alan said. It's like when you're coming back for you. Like, you count this as your first season, because this is probably the first time you've been able to play proper football. You'll be and be able to do everything that you want to do without having to worry about your knee and think, oh well, I'll do that for maybe 10 minutes and then I'll have to stop, and then maybe that will mean I won't be able to go training on Thursday. If you do Tuesday, Thursday, for example, I'll train Tuesday and not Thursday. So that gives me enough recovery to then play Sunday. So all of that stuff's going through your mind, and you're kind of managing it all the time. It's not
and
what
it
you
was
want,
a lot. Yeah, and now I'm like, I'm just so happy to play. Like I can just go to train, I can just go to play the matches. And it's like
you're falling back in love with the game again.
Yeah, I fell out of love with the game really bad, and it destroyed me a lot. And I was like, I've grown up playing football my whole life. It's been an outlet, and now trying to get back into it, I'm like, where is this love gone? And there was moments where I was like, I don't know where to find it. Is it ever going to come back? And then coming to Ash, I found it again. So it was really good. It's a really nice feeling to be like so excited to be back on the pitch.
How are you doing personally this season with Ash? Because you're a striker, aren't you?
Yeah.
So how are you doing this season? Are you getting goals?
She turned up on her debut, hadn't played for 3 years, and she's like, I might be a little bit rusty. She banged in 4 by half time. And I remember saying to her, like, what happens if you're in a bad headspace and you don't score in a game? And she, oh, well, I always score. So confidence is there.
Yeah, well, there's times where I'm like really confident, and there's times where the confidence knocks me a little bit, and I do get in my head. But then I have to remember, like, I am still coming back from being out for a long time, but like having you there, and it's like, well, look how much you've come from. Like,
it will take a whole season minimum to come back to where you want to see yourself. And I think probably about, I think we played 10 games this season, 11 games. So basically, it's 11 games in 3 years back. Yes. But again, it's 11 games you've played now that you didn't play last season.
Yeah.
And everyone's more to it.
Yeah, and just having more minutes. Like before surgery, it was 20 minutes. And now it's like a good 85, 80.
90 minutes, no problem at all, really.
Yeah, 90. Yeah. And it's just man managing as well. So
yeah,
if I do need to come off, I'll be like, I need to give it a little bit of a rest, but then recharge and I'll come back on.
Yeah. So Blaine, moving onto you, when just quickly, when that game where you lost 10-0 and you looked at Danni and she was smiling, and you were wondering why she was, and you asked her why she was smiling. Did her answer sort of, because obviously as a manager, when nobody likes losing, let alone losing by double figures. So you're obviously upset, annoyed, or whatever by the scoreline. But did that comment sort of put a lot of things into perspective for you because of her situation?
Yeah, to be honest, what was quite like, because it was a pre-season friendly, we could try a few things. I remember being 1-0 down at half time, thinking we can go out and nick the second half here, change things. And first half was brilliant, but that one comment has changed the way I conduct myself the whole season with everything, because it's taken an individual player and their individual battle and going, right, they've come out of that, they've took the positives from something. It's so easy to come out from a negative in anything, but it's trying to find a positive in something, which when you put a negative onto a team who are losing, you're just putting pressure on pressure. If you come in and you go, you know what, that first half, a couple of things we weren't great, but we did this really well, we did that really well. So if we can keep doing that and then add this to it, we'll be there. So just by saying that allowed me to go away, think about it a lot, and then use that in my personal life as well, in my own experiences, and change that. So that little throwaway comment that she just said, maybe thinking it didn't mean a lot, changed a lot for us as a team as well.
Yeah.
And it's smiling coming off the pitch. Like, as long as we don't keep losing 10-0 and she keeps smiling, I don't mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll be a limit.
Yeah. That is what management's about, Blaine, isn't it? It's sometimes if you always need to try and find something positive from a game, especially when you're playing. I mean, sometimes when you're a professional footballer, obviously it's a bit different. The manager throw the teacups at you and all sorts and walk out. But when you need to have that enjoyment still in the game, because you're playing for fun. You're not getting paid. You know what I mean? So you always got to try and find some positives, but obviously also highlight some of the negatives as well. Maybe we could do this better, and we'll work on that for next time and make that better. So there's always a way of always trying to have a little spin on things sometimes, isn't it? Even if the result is a shocker. I mean, that second half sounds horrendous, to be honest with you. 1-0 down and come off with 10. Well, I mean, I don't know.
I blame the subs. I blame the changes. That's the best thing about the pre-season friendlies. You can try something, and then you go, "Yeah, we won't try that again. We won't be doing 5 at the back next time. We'll leave that alone." But no, like I say, even I think that was Danny kind of playing 90 minutes, and you go away from that. You think, right, okay, what other positives can I take from that and build it into the next game? So it was an important message you got through to me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do now, because obviously you guys came and watched us play before we had the chat with me and Leanne, and well, I mean, you can see how far into the early stages that we are as a team, because we've literally just all been thrown together, and we are, look, wouldn't have ever were, we are struggling, but this is our first season as a club, so I'm not really sort of putting too much pressure onto them as far as getting results and that. It's as long as trying to make them enjoy it, which is difficult when you lose 13-0. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with them, really. But let's look at let's go back with you, Blaine, and go back to Farnborough, because I believe the Farnborough B team was your first step into women's football.
Dan. With Dan. So me and Dan, we was Dan offered me the job a couple of times, and I turned it down a couple of times. And then the third time, he said, "Look, come on, let's have a chat." And we did. And I've mentioned it on my podcast. Those Farnborough days were some of the best days I've ever had in football. They were brilliant. It was not just because it was first season and everything, it was all new. We had a very good group of girls that was a mix of talent, new players coming in, but the bond that we managed to build within that squad was phenomenal. And many a time I've looked back and I've reminisced. God, I do miss those days there. It was brilliant. I loved it. I loved my time at Farnborough was so good. I love Ash. Let's just clarify that. Put that on the record. I do love Ash. Yeah. Just so we know. But my Farnborough days are brilliant. And me and Dan, we did very well. We were lucky enough to get to a cup final and we're in promotion with the team. But it was the whole of what I think the problem looking back at now is we come in and we won most of the games. And then last season with Ash, again, we missed out on promotion by 2 points, but we won most of the games. This season, we're now not winning. And that, from winning for 2 years to this, is a massive mindset and a mind change. And it's like, I've learned more in the past 3 months than I did in the first 2 years. But the farmer was lovely, and it was something that I'll never forget, if I'm honest.
It's difficult, isn't it, Blaine? Everyone always says, in the game that you learn a lot more when you're losing matches, and when you're winning games, it's a lot easier to manage, isn't it? But it is true that it is definitely a different mind change in total when you're trying to win games and turn form around, etc. And also it's a confidence thing as well with a lot of players, isn't it? When things are not going well, the confidence starts to drain. You got to try and find ways of keeping people their confidence and their positivity up, haven't you?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is when you lose 2 or 3 in a row, you then get 90 minutes to try and change it, to do it again and win it. And then you go 4, then you go 5. You're like, hang on a minute, something needs to change here. And we've never lost. Last season, there was only one game we let in more than one goal in a game. We were so tight at the back. I think in the first 2 seasons with Farnborough and Ash, we lost 3 league games overall in 2 seasons. This season, I've lost the last 3 in a row. So we're laughing. So, yeah, that's the support I get. Jesus. But
you're laughing, Danny. You're part of it.
Yeah, I know. I'm the problem.
She's the problem, yeah. But the thing is, it's going back to what you touched on earlier on and what Danny said, taking little victories. With this season at Ash, some of the time, we were half hour away. I don't know if a lot of people know this. This club was half hour away from the women's team folding through numbers because of the likes of some new teams in the area, with Aldershot, Farnham doing well, Farnborough, Badshot Lee from New Green. The numbers just weren't there. We then lost our whole back line to university. We've lost a player to pregnancy. We lost 2 to injury. And at times, when we flew to Jersey on an away game with 9 players. Yeah. 9 players to turn up. and even a couple of games at home, we had 9 players, or we'd have 11, start with 11, end up finishing with 8 or 9. So spinning it, just the last game we just had, but it was called off. I had 16 available, five on the bench, 11 on pitch. So we're now starting to get the numbers back to where I want them to be. So just to still have a club to manage is a victory in ourselves.
Yeah, no, it sounds really good now. Because so how did it initially come about? Go into Ash.
So obviously, I was at Farnborough. We had a cup final. We lost the cup final, but we were punching above our weight for a long time in that cup, and we ended up coming up against a very strong AFC Tottenham team, and we lost. But I was going through a relationship breakup at the time, and I was struggling to deal with that, if I'm honest. So there's a lot of memories for me at Farnborough, good, but a lot of bad. And I needed to, if I was going to deal with this, I needed to come away from Farnborough. So otherwise, it was going to get worse for myself and things that were going on behind the scenes with drinking and everything that I was struggling with. So I made the decision to leave after the cup final, and a couple of weeks later, we got approached by Ash they were looking to start a women's team up. So I got talking to them. Dan was still manager of Farnborough at the time, and I saw when the season finished, then I approached Dan and said, "Look, where do you see yourself next season? Ash is a possibility for us." So we had a couple of meetings with them, and they said, "Look, what they can offer," and it was quite obviously. Our time at Farnborough was lovely. We were playing on a school pitch, which was nice, but we got the opportunity to have a changing rooms, a pitch, a clubhouse, a bar, just a little bit more for players we wanted to give. Yeah. Farnborough gave everything to us in regards to the pitches and everything that they had at the time, but we were looking just for the next step, I think, because we were a development team. It was a case of that's how a development team works. When you build something with players, once they get very good, they then step up.
Move up, yeah,
which is understandable. So every time we were building something, they might just move on, but we knew that from day one when we come in to manage the development team. So then we're like, look, we want to be a first team somewhere. So that's how we come to Ash. And we must have done something right at Farnborough, because 10 of the development team followed us across. And then built around that. And we had a very good first season. We're in I think Surrey League's quite a tough league. But again, we thought it'd be very nice to carry that into this season, and we'll be successful this season. But as football goes, that is not the way. So it's been a learning curve this season, but it was the right time to start Ash and make the move to Ash. But I'll always look back on my Farnborough days and always look back with such fond memories of them, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. We had good times at Farnborough. I was there at the cup final, which you unfortunately lost. So you created a good side last season with Ash. As you said, you brought in loads of the players from Farnborough. But this season things have changed for one reason or another, player wise. But I believe Dan obviously as well moved on a couple of months ago as well, did he?
Yeah. So Dan, he was, the school. It's 24/7 this job. Trying to do that, work, family, home life, and everything. And Dan had been talking to myself for a couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, looking, say, look, I'm struggling to fit it in. His boy plays on a Sunday. He wasn't seeing his boy play football on a Sunday. Trying to find that balance for anyone is hard. And he was just like, look, I think it's now time for me just to step away for a bit. Because when you're on it for 3 seasons constantly during the summer, you don't get that rest time. And me and Dan still talk every day. And it's very nice to hear that he left on his terms. He wanted to go. He wanted to spend time with the family, watch his boy play football. So when I speak to him and I hear how happy he is, it's very nice to hear that. Sometimes when I'm getting beat 2 or 3-0 and I'm thinking, I could do with you here now, mate. But no, listen, we wish him all the best. I'm sure me and Dan will work together again in the future. We've always worked together wherever we've been. So one day we might work together in the future and everything. But again, Dan was a founder of this club with myself, the women's team, and we wouldn't be where we are without him coming across and starting it with myself as well. So, everything to Dan, and again, with the B team. I wouldn't be in women's football if it wasn't for Dan giving me an opportunity in a development team. So I wouldn't be talking to yourselves now. I wouldn't have met Danny. None of this would have happened. So I owe a lot to Dan, because at the time I was in a bit of a dark place with addiction issues, and he sort of pulled me out of that to an extent. So it was good to now be where we are now.
Yeah, it does sound like that. Being involved, it's the same with me. Like being involved in football and grassroots football as it is, it's done a lot of good for you and helps with your sort of day-to-day stuff, and it's
Yeah,
something to concentrate on, isn't it?
I think that's important because this I can go and be 4, 5, 6 now and get beat that will never be as dark as some of the things I had to deal with outside of
Yeah,
football. So,
yeah,
end of the day, it sounds crazy. It's just football. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
That's the nature of the beast. You win, you lose. It is just that. But I've got quite an addictive personality. So with Ash, I am always analysing the games, going over everything, keeping in touch with the players. And I don't mind that. As much as it can be stressful 24/7, I don't care because it keeps my mind occupied. If my mind's not busy, that's when it becomes an issue. So
exactly. No,
yes,
exactly.
especially when you're losing, it keeps your mind much more busy. So
Yeah. No, it does. Yeah,
Yeah, it is. It's someone I've got involved in some groups over my years on Earth, and involved in gambling addiction mainly, and all sorts of things. And it does having something to focus on is a really good tool to get yourself away from those issues. And if it doesn't help, if you're on your own, for example, and you don't really want to do anything, depression and addiction come hand in hand, I find.
yeah.
And you kind of end up you kind of go around in a circle with it, and you end up feeling depressed. So you go home on your own, and you're sitting around, and then all of a sudden, all you think the dark thoughts start coming over your head because
Yeah.
you haven't got anything to focus on. But if you've got some things off the field, hobbies, sport, anything, TV, box set on the telly, anything, keep your mind occupied. You get through things a lot easier and a lot quicker. And it also helps with if you've got people around you who can sort of help you as well and talk to and have a chat, even just have a chat on the phone. Is because it comes hand in hand with depression, addiction, and also loneliness. Those three things all come around. You feel sort of an isolated person, and you're just your four walls in where in your room or your house, and you find yourself going down that dark place. But if you can get yourself out and go and do something, I took up running a few years ago, and it really helps me. A lot of people find going out running is very therapeutic and exercise, but I go and watch football all the time. I try and watch as many games as I can. Farnborough. I went down to Bracknell last night just to go down to watch the Chelsea Arsenal game. They had some training on down there, so I watched that, and that's me out of the house. And I'll go walking as well in the evenings now as well. So it's just things like this can really help. It's all about trying to keep yourself occupied, keep yourself busy, and then all of a sudden 6 months down the line, you think to yourself, do you know what? I haven't thought about that at all. And you think, well, that was actually easier than I thought it would be. Where it becomes very difficult if you just sitting around in your room and in your four walls and just on your own every night, and you can't be bothered to do anything, and that's where things start getting dark.
Yeah, I think life can be hard, and you get into a routine sometimes. It's so easy to work, come back, just put 10
Yeah,
on, sit there. I mean, we do this podcast together. My episode come out yesterday, and I touched on that I've got the football, but like yourselves, we've got this podcast as well. So the football's not going great. I also have something else to sort of fall back on, and I think I touched on it that as much as I've got the football, the podcast that we do with Danni has probably saved my life because there are times on the episode that I spoke about in September when I tried a suicide attempt in September, and I got found by a couple of people, was in hospital for a couple of days and everything. And off the back of that, me and Danni got talking about people's stories, and we come up with the Her Journey podcast. So now you end up meeting people now on a weekly basis who have gone through so much, and you can relate to them. You get it's not a therapy session, but you get an hour and a half to talk to them about them, their lives, and everything, and you sort of reset and you go again. So it gives you that outlet as well, other than football. Because football is good, but just have something else to fall back on.
yeah. I like what you guys do actually with your podcast. Can you talk about a lot of people who've gone through some really serious stuff? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Danni, also yourself, you've gone through a really serious injury, and it's taken you a long time to get back. But it's sometimes really good to talk about it, and they appreciate. I mean, you obviously appreciate talking about it as well, and it's quite therapeutic sometimes to do it, isn't it? Even sometimes it brings up bad memories too. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
but it's a really helpful tool to kind of get through things. And you're doing your podcast as well. I mean, me and Alan are both busy people as well, and we haven't really got time for anything else really. We're playing football and working, and Alan does another podcast. I do this as well, and and plus I work away as well. So I'm driving around the country quite a bit as well. So that all takes your time. And some people think, oh, it must be, you must be really busy, but I actually like being really busy because it helps you, takes you away from all the other things that you can get involved with if you're not busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, massively. But like I say, when the episode that come out, normally it's called Her Journey. It's all females in sport, but quite a few people just wanted to know how I got into it. But I must have had 30, 40 lads that I know message me directly or ring me going, I've heard your story. I'm going through something. Can I talk to you about this or can I talk to you about that? And just to have that let out, men don't talk too much. There's a bit of a stigma sometimes to it. I'd like to think the past 5 to 10 years as a community, we're breaking that stigma of men not talking and now reaching out. So the episodes that we do put out, male or female, they are dark, but because that's true life, that's raw, but it's life. If you sugarcoat it, you're not giving a true reflection of what someone's been through. So you sort of come in unfiltered, everything gets put out on the table, and then we've had guests come on and just feel like they've managed to get a weight off their shoulders. And just the first time some of them may have spoke about it, we had Aldershot captain Shannon Mather on, and she was talking about how hard it was to try and look after her little one with an ACL injury, and she was choking up about it. She said, it's hard, I don't really speak about it. So just to have that opportunity to go in themselves, I can talk about it now. And if I'm talking about it to people on camera and microphones, then I can talk about it to friends. So that little thing that, like yourself, understand the podcast community, everyone comes together and can chip in.
Yeah, podcast is a really good way of doing it, isn't it? It's a really good tool. It's come about not as it was, designed for. People go on podcasts to maybe have a bit of fun and talk about fun things, but you can also get into the dark side of things. And me and Alan often say off air that we're also a bit of a warts and all kind of podcast, because we don't pre-record or edit. We just literally
That's like us.
Yeah, but I find that's
mainly because I don't know how to edit. So
we're too old. With technology's overtaken us. We've had it. So we just press record, note for the best. But because of that, you kind of bring out emotions. Like we had Johnny Stuttle on a few weeks before Christmas, and we were asking questions around his injury. And he had an ACL and a medial ligament injury in his knee. He's obviously out for the season. And when I was talking to him, I could physically see he was getting quite choked up about the injury and what had happened. And he's openly admitted he's really struggling. And he's having to see a psychiatrist at Bournemouth to help him through it. And they know each other quite well, and they talk every week, and it's really helped. But it does bring out, people need to understand that life isn't always really easy. You don't always wake up the same time every day and do the same things. You go to work and it's a nice easy day, and then you come home and your dinner's waiting for you on the table. Life can be quite hard, and it can be, and I like the term you use, dark. It can be quite dark, but also when you then listen to someone else's story, you sometimes realize to yourself how lucky you actually are. So if you bring that into perspective is a big thing in life now. If you use perspective and think, you know what, I might be really struggling with things, but there's always somebody worse off than me. That's my attitude to things. I might be really struggling with things, and things might have gone off me. I might have broke down on the M25 and I'm stuck here for 3 hours, but there's someone else who's a lot worse off than I am. So kind of like it does bring life into perspective a bit, I find.
That's usually me broke down on M25. That's why Danny was laughing. I broke down on M25.
Oh, mate, as the late Chris Rea said, it is the road to hell, isn't it? So yeah. So you want to do a better car, Blaine. To be fair, you might be a bit.
To be fair, I do pray for that for Simon though every day. So maybe once it will happen that you'll break down somewhere.
Yeah, I've been quite lucky actually. The amount of miles I do, I haven't actually. Do you know what? I've said that I can't. Something's going to happen.
Oh, no, especially that shit heap of a car you've got. Listen, basically held together by black tape. So.
Listen, there's a lot to be said about masking tape. I tell you, it's the builder's secret.
But look, let's carrying on with your podcast. I've listened or watched every episode so far, and it is a brilliant podcast. And I was listening to your one, Blaine. I listened to it yesterday and this morning, and it obviously like everybody you've all been saying, it sort of stirs up old memories of what my life was like before before I started coaching and all of that, and some of the stuff that I used to get up to and all of that. So it does make you sort of think, and I thought, yeah, and I messaged you as well.
Yeah,
I think the day before I listened to it, and I said, yeah, I've had my own demons and stuff like that, and only certain people know really what's happened and what I've done. But I think it's a brilliant podcast. And did you guys sort of have a real sort of understanding of how good it was going to become, or how good it could be? Because you are dealing with like we've said, like the dark side of things, like the mental health side of things. And I should say as well, before you answer, that when this episode comes out, because obviously you're talking about your own experiences and that, so we will put in some links to some mental health charities and stuff like that on the end of the episode. So if anybody is triggered by what is being said, then there will be links at the end of the episode.
Samaritan's also a big one.
Yeah. We'll put links up to anyone. We've done it before.
We'll do that. We'll put the Samaritan stuff on and the phone number. Remember, they're only a phone call away if you ever need anything.
Yeah. But did you guys properly understand or realise that it was going to be as good as it was?
We always
Sorry.
Well, we always said at the beginning, before it even started, if it can just help one person, that's what we always said. If it can just help one person out there, then that would be great. And I always started this podcast because obviously during my time of having an injury, I was like, I don't have anyone to relate to. I don't know anyone who's going through a similar injury, similar mental health. I had absolutely no idea. So another thing to start this podcast, I was like, I just want people to be able to relate. Like, if it can just help, if someone can relate to it, then that I'll be happy. And then it just builds from that.
Isn't it? Yeah. Even last night we had a woman on called Sophie Kirk, who is a mental health therapist. She came on to talk about mental health in schools, in football teams, and predominantly women's sports teams, and how that can be. And the good thing about it is every time we put an episode out, we get a couple of 3 people message us going, oh, look, can we tell you our story? And then there's an opportunity to come on and speak. So we're quite lucky that we never know who's going to message. And in the following week, we'll book some people in. We're meeting new people every week, people that we would never normally meet at all. We're hearing stories that we would never normally hear. And some of the best bits is when their story goes out, we sort of touch base with them again, see how the reaction was for them, if they had a lot of people coming out wishing them all the best. And for some of the people that have come on, they said it's been phenomenal how many people have reached out to them going, I didn't know you were going through that. It's so nice to hear it. As much as it is nice to go and get the people up the top, the WSL players and everything, we've got a couple that are looking to come on. We're not striving for that. We want to make sure we give the grassroots people the platform, because as much as you've got a WSL player with an injury, like you touched on earlier, you've got a grassroots player, the injury's the same, but the struggle's a lot harder for a grassroots player. So we're going to make sure they get an opportunity to give their story. And we were quite lucky that we touched on it. Shannon Mather, I know her from last season. We went to watch her game, and she had injury during her game in a cup match for Aldershot, and it turned out she'd done her ACL. So me and Danny were thinking, we spoke to her, she was on about how much it would cost, and we said, look, let's see if we'd like, off the back of what you've done for Leanne, let's see if we could do a little something for Shannon. And we were quite lucky to raise some money, and it went towards Shannon's operation and everything. So off the back of that, all we want to do is give back to people who have looked or played for us or helped us or listened to the podcast, you know. So without that podcast, we wouldn't be able to have an opportunity to do that. Wouldn't be an opportunity to speak to yourselves now. And it's exciting, isn't it? Every day we get people message us, and we don't, not overwhelming, but we feel so lucky to be in this position here to be able to speak to these people.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it's you probably didn't know how many people was having these problems, did you, before? And it's like a snowball, isn't it? But there's a lot of people, and I think especially in the women's game with ACL injuries, there is a lot of reporting of problems, isn't there? There does seem to be a very high percentage of knee injuries with women players. Have you noticed Have you noticed that throughout the time? Is it a lot of knee injuries and things like that are appearing? Because I've noticed it.
Yeah, it's like we go, oh my God, another person. And then even just witnessing Shannon do hers, like we were there in the stand and we just heard her scream. And we were like, what is going on? It's just another ACL after ACL when it's like maybe one in the future we get someone on that works in the field of ACLs.
Well, next week we've actually got a women's football rehab centre just starting up in the area. So they're going to come on, speak about how women in sport combat rehabilitation. But we want to ask, why is it so prevalent, ACLs in females, in sports? Get all a little bit about that, because I talk about pitches, 4G pitches, it's 3 times more likely on a 4G pitch. Some stats that I found out coming to the women's game that I never knew. A woman is 3 times more likely to do her ACL when she's going for a period week than any other time. So then you start building that into your fact of when you're playing a game, you've got to allow for that knowledge. So we're not an information podcast, but I'm learning so much every time. And mate, if I listened a bit more at school, I'd know a little bit more. But now I'm just starting my school days again, retaining information, probably for about 12 hours because I forget everything. But yeah, again, it's other people who can watch this podcast and go, I didn't know that. I can now learn from that. Even last night was a phenomenal one with the mental health coming on. It was statistically teenagers and young men are more lonely than people in their 70s. And we didn't know that. You know what I mean? So things like that. It's phenomenal. I never knew that.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. It's you know what? It's amazing that you pick these things up, because going back to the ACL stuff, it's a bloke like me, for example, who's a pretty standard bloke, to be fair. You know, I never would have thought that, you know, a woman having a period would have an effect on her body as much as it does. You know, and obviously I've been in, you know, fairly long-term relationships and just dealt with it, you know, with the wife or your partner on their period at the time. You just sort of get on with it. You understand sometimes they're a little bit grumpy, but now having known that information, you probably understand.
Be careful what you say there, Simon.
Well, I think I was looking at Blaine when I said that, and he was not.
You still just looked at the floor like that. But then, even on that, as much as it is a thing, I don't know if Alan's had this as well. I know when players are going through that week, and I know that, so I then have to factor that into my information when I'm doing training, because their energy levels are so much lower, their food intake is lower, they've got so much going on. So when a player's off on training, off in a game, I then know the reason why, you know. So I have to factor that into, again, it's about being a man manager in women's football. When I've done some coaching at men's, coming across and coaching women was a whole new learning game for myself. I've been involved in men's football for 30 years. I thought I knew everything. Put that aside, you're day one again, women's football, you're starting again. And I think I'm 3 seasons in now, and I am still learning. I'd like to think I've learned a lot, but there's still much more to go. So even things like that, when they come on next week and give us some information, I can use that for the benefit of myself, for you and the team moving forward. So if there's other managers out there who manage females that watch this podcast, they go, oh, I'll have a little bit of that, and I use that for my own help and help the same players that we've got.
Yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, obviously, this is the thing. We've had this conversation a lot, myself and Alan, about the women's game, and we understand that it's 30 years behind the men's game in reality, but it's catching up fast. And all of these things that we're talking about now are things that people have never spoke about, really. They just sort of, just get on with it. You know what I mean? Oh, they're rubbish. Or like Joey Barton will come out with, it's like playing football in slow motion, all that sort of stuff, underwater football and all that rubbish he sprouts. And the game is catching up fast. But then you've also got to add in all the sort of physicality functions of a woman that you have to take into account. So it's a lot. As Blaine said, it's a lot to take in. It's not as easy as just sort of a bloke turns up with his boots and shin pads and off he goes and plays. Sometimes, like you said, a woman might be feeling a bit lower in energy for a few days. You know what I mean? You've got to take all those factors in and say, you can only really play for 60 minutes rather than 90. Then you've got to try and factor in substitutions and trying to work out a way of getting the best out of that person and then getting someone else in to replace it. It's a lot. As you said, Blaine, it's a lot to factor in, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that one of the hardest things is when you're, I don't know if Alan's had this yet, you're managing a women's football team, and then I've had it twice now, you'll get a message just to let you know I'm 9 weeks pregnant. And you're like, whoa, okay, so that's you now out for the season. And again, that's part and parcel of managing a women's team. So then you then lose that player for however long, and then either coming back from giving birth and coming back into the game is hard again, and that can happen at any time, any player. So you factor all that in as well. So yeah, managing women is hard, but I wouldn't change it for anything. I love it. I really do enjoy it. And you're right, the women's game is catching up massively. There's still a bit to go, but again, we spoke about this on our pod. There's so many challenges with women because a lot of women who do play, some of them are single parents, so they've got no one to look after their kids at training. They might go to their dads at weekends, but so they can't make training. Usually 80% of the time, the women are at home with the kids while the father's working. So if the dad's home late from work, they can't train. Whereas 9 times out of 10, the bloke will always go to training. So it's finding that balance in women's football, but it is starting to come up to the levels where you'd like it to be. I know we hear a lot of the times about they should be paid the same as men and everything. It's not that it's not there. It's the TV revenue comes in for the men's football, and it will always be like that. It will never be 100% the same because of how men's football's been so long. But when women's football coming up now, even in the one below WSL, some of those players are still part-time. If they go full-time, they then got to give up their working job. So then we've got to see, okay, I'm going to give that up. I'm going to play full-time for 6, 7, 8 years. Then my career's over. I can't go into the media like a lot of WSL players. So it's catching up, but make sure it doesn't swallow itself as it goes.
Yeah. You're dead right with the revenue streams. This is the issue that I have with women's football. I'm a little bit of a pragmatist regards women's football myself.
Careful, because I'm hovering over the mute button, Simon. Careful.
And it's I am a little bit like that. I see the issues in the women's game, but also when I hear things from Emma Hayes, for example, saying I should get equal pay and blah blah blah, it's not feasible because of the revenue money that you're getting in. It's like a men's World Cup creates £4 billion, whereas a women's one creates 400,000. So there's your difference. Until the revenues come up, which they are slowly building, until they come up, you can't expect the ladies' game to be paying the same as the men's game. It's just not feasible, is it? And that's just me. That's just being realistic, isn't it? It's not me trying to poke anybody or kick anyone when they're down. No. It's just that is just the reality of life, isn't it?
You have to come at it with a straight view of it's just there. Men's football, organised men's football, has been going for however many years. It was illegal for women to play football to a period of time. Yeah, WSL didn't start until 2012. So we're talking 14 years. The Premier League was going since '92.
Yeah, that ban. Looking back, that is just it's absurd, isn't it? It's absolutely absurd, and it's meant there's been a great big gap in women playing football, and that all could have been avoided. It does make you wonder what going through people's minds, doesn't it? All them years ago.
Yeah, I was thinking,
I think it's sort of
that ban.
Sorry,
I was just saying, what if there was never a ban? Where would
where would the women's game be now? It'd be unbelievable.
The ban, I think that obviously the ban came about because there was that thought and dynamic of what men and women should do and their roles in life should be like. The man was the one that went to work, brought home the bacon. The woman was the one that stayed at home and brought up the kids and cleaned them. But it's not like that. Do you know what I mean? And like you said, the WSL came about in when you said 2012, 2013. They've only been professional since 2019 or something like that. So they've not actually been professional for that long.
But they're only just starting to move into the big stadiums as well. So you're just starting to come into that. You could open up at Stamford Bridge Emirates for every women's game, but it won't get filled. You'd rather have 3,000 in Kings Meadow and Kingston for Chelsea for certain games to make it a good atmosphere.
Yeah, you're spot on, You're spot on. That's always been my point. You need to, as much as it sounds harsh, you have to be able to crawl before you walk. You know what I mean? And so you've got to build it up slowly. It is a gradual process, and like I said, the women's game is catching up quickly. And when it's really well funded, and there's sponsorship coming in, and there's people involved in the game now that want to see it continue to thrive, and it is thriving. And you're going to have I think there's going to be a little bit of a lull now for maybe 2 or 3 years where you won't see a massive talent pool increase, but then suddenly it'll boost up because that's the age of the people playing football. On the back of the the Euros and then the World Cup, and then you've got another Euros. And where England have been done really well in both tournaments and won things, and you're going to have those influence of kids. But those ages of those people playing at 12 and 13, and they can't start playing a proper adult football until they're 16.
Yeah.
There is going to be a little bit of a gap. So I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The papers are going to be like, oh, we see the women's game starting to lull now, the flood's over. But then you'll see a sudden incline in things, especially if the women's team, the England women's team, still continue to do really well as well. And I mean, America's obviously they're well ahead of us on that. They've been playing a lot of time. But like I say, I've probably used Alan's analogy, and branch out a little bit further. It was back in the sort of the 70s and 80s was the man would bring home the bacon, and the woman would be there to cook it. You know what I mean? That was just the thought process, wasn't it? But it's thankfully times have changed now, and there's no reason why anybody who's interested or got the talent to play professional sports shouldn't be pushed into it and show their truth and get their true potential out.
But I think even in the area, if we look at the local area, if we go back 5 years, there was no women's team at Ash, Farnham, Aldershot, Farnborough. So in that little area alone in 5 years, that's what's come up.
Yeah.
Give another 5 years, what else is going to be there? And I think this is why we touched on there's not a lot of female coaches in our leagues or managers in our leagues, because there was nothing 10 years ago for that. So in 20 years' time, the players that are playing, say 25 now, but then when they retire, I now want to coach. So in 15 years' time, there will be a lot of players, female players, want to go into the game. And like you say, it's got to catch itself up.
Yeah.
But if you go back 20 years, they weren't playing football in schools. No. Now it's most schools offer football to females. So those players coming through now in the 13, 14, they're phenomenal. They're learning the game in a way that we could never teach.
Yeah, exactly. And also with what we mentioned about the coaching, those players who are playing football now who then go into coaching in maybe 10, 15 years' time, they're going to have the experience as well. They're not going to be just going into it blind, having just done a maybe a UEFA qualified badge and not actually got any actual experience of playing football. So they'll also have the technical ability as a coach from their course, but also the actual playing experience they've taken as well. And they'll marry those two things together. That's what makes a good coach. You have both sides, and you call on your experience that you've had as a person, and then you also then you bring across your technical abilities you've learned as a coach, and then you marry it all together, and that's what makes you a good coach.
That's exactly it. You got it spot on there, 100%.
So this was to say, Danni, is coaching something that you thought about? And this is a two-part question. Is coaching something that you thought about for obviously in the future?
He's trying to retire you earlier, Danni. You've only just got played.
And also, how is Blaine as a coach and as a manager as well? Because obviously it was Dan before.
Yeah, well, I've tried to start coaching.
Every female in my team thinks they can coach, by the way.
No,
let me tell you that. Yeah,
you make it look too easy, Blaine. That's why.
Why don't we try this?
I've tried coaching in the past with like younger girls and everything. It's not really my cup of tea, to be honest with you. Maybe in the future I might look at it differently, but at the minute there's not I really want to coach, but that's because I'm playing at the minute, so it's not like I'm in the coaching mindset, but you never know what could happen. Maybe.
Well, I'll tell you what, Danny, if you ask Alan, he probably was the same as you when he was your age, because it's definitely an older person thing. Unfortunately, life comes at you, and you realise you're not as fast anymore, and you can't do the things you could do when you were 10 years ago. So then you start thinking about maybe I could, but on the flip side of that, you've got the experience.
Yeah.
So you then start thinking I can help other players. So that's where it comes around. So it is definitely an older person's thing. That's why you don't see too many 19-year-old, 20-year-old coaches.
I don't have the. Yeah, I don't. I was a bit like you, Danny. I don't have the patience for to coach young kids. I mean,
that was me. They were grabbing onto my legs, and I thought I can't do that. I don't know.
I know. Yeah.
Please get off me.
I know. I just think I've got kids myself, and obviously with my partner, she's got kids, and she's a teacher, and I love them to bits, but sometimes they're fucking morons. And I'd much rather deal with adults than I would children, and so that's why I just went straight into adults football.
Yeah, I'll do as well, to be honest.
That would be my advice. You just go straight into adults football, skip the kids.
You never know. I might go. I fancy it now, but at the minute I'm just focusing on playing. But
no, that's fine. But so how's Blaine then? How's Blaine as a coach and a manager?
well, got my checklist now.
Yeah.
Leave the room, Blaine, for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
No, he's awesome. Like literally the best. I mean, I wouldn't be back in love with the game if it wasn't for Ash and if it wasn't for Blaine. So and Dan as well. So all I can do is this is like a massive thank you for being back into the game. And I wouldn't be sat here on a podcast if I wasn't back in football. So it comes back to that thing again. I tried to get back into it a little bit, but coming to Ash, I think was very, very good. And if it wasn't for my best mate to be like, oh, I could just come to Ash for a couple of times.
Just
If it wasn't for her, then it wouldn't have happened. This podcast wouldn't happen. I wouldn't be at Ash. So yeah, and he's a very good manager. So we put all the trust into him.
Click that bit and put that out on the social.
You send that to you by email,
Yeah. Also, just have to say as well, I'm loving the merchandise. The tops. Let's give us a good view of them.
I'm breathing in a bit.
That's what we need, Simon.
We've got like t-shirts with our badge on it, but we could branch out to some things. I did put it on my Christmas list to Alan this year, but as usual, he didn't give me anything. So we've
got the t-shirts with our badge on it, like Simon said. But unfortunately, because we've got season tickets at Farnborough, we're not allowed to wear them in the bar in the Platinum Lounge. So we have to wear normal shirts and smart shirts, and not our podcast ones, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah, no advertising for us, sadly. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
This is medium. This is a medium. It looks a little bit tight. This is a medium, okay?
Absolute lies. Absolutely, it's extra large, isn't it? Extra large.
It's got kisses on the back and an L by the looks of it.
Listen, guys, it's been great having you on. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing everything. Just quickly before you go, tell everybody that's listening and watching us. Tell everyone that's watching us where they can find your podcast and how they can listen.
You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, but also we record it so you can actually watch it on YouTube as well. And then find us on Instagram as well at Her Journey Podcast.
Brilliant stuff. Listen, don't go away. We'll have a little chat after we close up. Simon, would you got anything to say?
No, just thanks very much. Obviously, thanks for listening. But obviously, we have covered some subjects tonight that we probably didn't expect to cover, actually, to be fair. And that's the warts and all podcast for you. But you know, if you are struggling with anything, addiction or just like general loneliness, feeling not yourself, get in touch with someone, family members, call on your family, call on your friends, and don't forget, Samaritans is only a phone call away. So we'll give the numbers out on our when we send the episodes out. Just get in touch with someone. Don't be afraid to talk.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. We'll tag everybody in on this podcast when we finish. That leads me to say this episode was sponsored by Chartered Consulting, taking your business visions and turning them into innovative reality. For more information, visit charteredconsulting.co.uk. Thanks everybody for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Danni, Blaine, thanks a lot for coming on. Don't go away. Simon, say good night.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, take care. Remember, Borough home on Saturday. So get down, support the club, and there's also a rearranged fixture, Wednesday 21st of January against Chelmsford as well. So be good to see everybody there. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, guys.